Welcome to the Sherman Report. Here's Peter Sherman.
It is Wednesday, halfway through the week. Peter Sherman and Andy Stinton. Remember us? We're both on the show today. It's my show, but Andy's the invited guest today. Now, we were discussing this last week. Can two people discuss Donald Trump, one who agrees with voting for him and the other who doesn't, and still walk away after a civil discussion and remain friends? We're going to try that today, so stay tuned. Happily, Canada's inflation rate is now at 2%. That was the target, the ultimate goal of the Bank of Canada when it began raising the overnight bank rate several years ago. The good news is that they succeeded. Now it's time to back off and stimulate, I say. We'll talk about that. Canadian parliamentarians are discussing a confined cyber attack. Not welcome, but if you think that's something, consider what control a massive cyber attack has when you consider that many or perhaps most countries have the ability to fight such a cyber war without a single shot being fired. I'm not sure that's not worse than any alternative, but we'll get into that as well. And next week, Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives get their first opposition day. This is a test. Either the NDP and the Bloc want an election or they don't. We know that Poilievre does. Confidence motion in the offing puts them to the test on September the 25th. Discussion on the 24th and the vote on the 25th. Back in one moment.
Now, the Sherman Report continues.
You were probably wondering if or when Pierre Poilievre was going to get his shot at a vote of non-confidence in the Trudeau government within the House of Commons. That announcement came out yesterday following another unexpected Liberal election loss. That was the one in Montreal. The same seat at one time as was occupied by a predecessor of Justin Trudeau's, Prime Minister Paul Martin. Was there a relationship between Trudeau's capitulation on the opposition day and that electoral defeat that he suffered? You'll have to ask Justin Trudeau because I can't tell you for sure. I don't think he's taking my calls. There are such things as opposition days in the ordinary course of business, several during the parliamentary season. This is simply one of those, and it comes down to the Liberal House leader who directs what the Liberals are doing in the House, and the other House leaders, in this case, notably the House leader of the official opposition Conservatives, discussing the business of the ensuing week or weeks. Mostly, it's that some bill is going to be debated and what days they're going to use for that. Speakers from each party will memorialize a deceased member of Parliament, maybe that, and when they're going to do that. But it also includes when opposition days will occur. And the one we'll watch for is September 24th, with MPs voting on the following day. I don't know what the subject will be, but I suggest that it will likely be a direct involvement of the Trudeau government, what it's done and has not done that Poilievre will suggest should lead to this non-confidence vote. I'm no oracle who can tell you what will happen that day, but I can tell you that it'll be a test more for the Bloc Québécois and the NDP than for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. The Conservatives, remember this, vowed to evoke an election as early as possible, as early as they could. So they're going to try. If the NDP and Bloc go along, we Canadians go to the polls pretty soon. Hey, maybe you go to the polls around the same time as the Americans. You never know. If they don't, then Poilievre will have to look for other opportunities to try again, or we'll all be waiting for next October when the clock runs out anyway for the Trudeau Liberal government. Trudeau is basically daring everyone to evict him from office. I don't think he believes all three parties will vote against his government. That's why we can expect the opposition motion to be crafty. Because if the government stands due to NDP and or Bloc unwillingness to vote against it, they'll have to withstand media and public scrutiny more than Pierre Poilievre. He's already said what he's going to do. The one thing you must understand about this system, it is the job of His Majesty's loyal opposition, that's what they're called, to do what its name suggests. Opposition means you are there to oppose. So that's what's going on. So is this just brinkmanship on all sides? Trudeau doesn't want to appear weak, so he's betting the two minor parties don't want any election. Meanwhile, you can bet that whatever the motion and the ensuing debate look like, Pierre Poilievre and his team will be very passionate about their position and the substance of the motion, which will be created to do as much as possible in forcing the hand of the NDP and the Bloc. And if I were to guess, I'd say it's a motion that will relate directly to the carbon tax. The Montreal by-election loss has added to the drama surrounding Trudeau, the Liberal caucus, and what can be done to turn things around. Different, often unidentified caucus members have divergent views on why the Liberal Party sustained that loss in Montreal 2 nights ago. The Liberal message in that regard is that the Liberal government will focus on cost of living and housing in the days, weeks, and months to come, to which I say, okay, where were those priorities when we were looking at them last year? They were turning into realities last year. Where were you? Anyway, that's just me. Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne told media he'd rather double down on the Liberal record and plans and make sure they work harder to present their vision. And I say again, okay for that. MPs are tending to believe they won't be seeing Trudeau step aside, and winning next time around will take some very heavy lifting. Back in just a moment.
You're with the Sherman Report, daily news commentary, live at 5 p.m. Video version live at X, YouTube, and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
Well, we've just seen the United States Federal Reserve cut its rates. Canada now showing we have hit 2% inflation. 2% inflation has met the target set by them as the norm, to which we needed to return in order to see substantial rate cuts. Many in economic and banking circles are tossing around a possible 50 basis point cut next month. That's a full 0.5%. Now, that would be a great move if you're talking about kickstarting the moribund housing industry, for example. 2% is the lowest rate of inflation in 3 years. In fact, the Bank of Canada, which sets those rates, had said originally that a steady 2% inflation rate or less would be an appropriate point for targeting a 2% overnight rate to banks. Right now it's at 4.25%, so pretty heavy. That would mean mortgages of somewhere between 2 and 3%. Starting to sound interesting? If you look at a chart of inflation in Canada over 10 years, you'd see it held fairly steady. Back then, upticking only in mid-2020, peaking in mid-2022, and falling back again to the modest line it held previously by mid-2024. Clearly, a lot of that upward trend was connected to COVID. Some economists are using terms like in line, non-threatening, flat as it's going to be to suggest that stimulus is now the requirement, hence lower rates. We've seen many things drop, gas, clothing, but food, a little bit, but not so much yet, if it's going to at all. We have not seen a drop in inflation in the last 55 years or so. National Bank economists say lagging by leaving it around 4.25% may harm Canada's economy. They and others believe somewhere between 2.5 and 3% are now the appropriate number. I don't think the Bank of Canada is going to get there quite that fast, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it soon. I think we could see that by early 2025 if this direction is maintained. We've already seen 3 1/4% rate cuts to get us to the 4.25% we're sitting at now. Clearly, the intention of the Bank of Canada was to use rate leverage to slow the economy down, slow it down and force both consumer and business purchasers to just hold off. It seems to have worked. Hanging on for too long can take us the other way, right into recession, which nobody wants. Knowing what I know about economics, and I'll be frank about it, it's only basic university theory coupled with lived experience. I'd be betting that Tiff Macklem, the Bank of Canada governor, will oversee a 0.5% cut when he speaks to that issue in a couple of weeks in October. We shall see. Back in a minute.
You're with the Sherman Report. Daily news commentary available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, with video posted on YouTube and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
We've all heard of hackers, right? But many of us think of hackers as kids in their mom and dad's basement who are looking to hack into school records and turn their D's into A's, or maybe create a retail gift certificate where there really is none, those kinds of things. It's almost in the class of mischief, serious as it may be. However, as true as that may be, hacking is actually an international enterprise engaged in by much more than just kids in mom and dad's basement. In fact, the kids aren't really an issue at all. The issue is countries. Many, if not most countries, now have intel areas, departments, whatever you want to call them, ministries, that possess expertise in doing extensive damage without so much as firing a weapon. It's in the news. And if it's in the news and it brought back a book I read, well, that's a good thing. I can tell you a little bit about it. So recently I did read a book about one party and what it can do in terms of payment with another party to purchase a bug discovered in software available commercially. In other words, if you can find a bug in the latest Microsoft release, you've got something that, if you know how to do it, is saleable for big money on the commercial market. And it could provide, and this is why it's so valuable, a backdoor opportunity to bad guys to deposit some, who knows what kind of designed virus into entire computer networks in other countries. And I mean big ones, not just countries, but industry. Let's suppose an enemy could turn off all bank machines, turn off all computing systems corporately or governmentally, interrupt gas pump function, turn off water supplies in cities or entire countries, disconnect from the power grid, disable sewage disposal, kill cellular systems, disable vehicular traffic and its control systems. Well, those things and more, they're all possible. And if an enemy did any of them, much less all of them, wouldn't people soon be quite trapped, even dying? If you couldn't bake, no power to bake. Use an elevator, maybe not get out of your high-rise building with any ease. Enter a supermarket to replenish. Get gas to make those kinds of trips. Where would you be? Where would you be? I know people who keep dried foods and MREs, which are meals ready to eat, on hand in their homes because they figure it's only a matter of time. A conservative MP, Garnet Genuis, told parliamentarians that Chinese hackers could have taken immediate steps if they knew what was coming sooner. Seems in 2021, individual parliamentarians connected with the Interparliamentary Alliance on China were targets for cyber attacks. The committee pushes for accountability from China. U.S. authorities informed Canada, let us know, in 2022, but it was not made apparent to the members, the MPs. Genuis, a Canadian co-chair, appeared before a committee inquiring into foreign interference yesterday, and he still doesn't know why he wasn't informed sooner. He and his Liberal counterparts say they need a protocol for advising parliamentarians early of cyber threats as detected. Now, this is important, but it's actually also small potatoes. Important as it is, it's small potatoes. You heard what I talked about before. When you think about what I was citing as doable dirty tricks a little bit earlier in this editorial, the issue that they've raised is, it's interesting, it's important, it should be addressed, but it's nothing compared to those other tricks. They're not tricks. They're not tricks at all. Those are a war, and we should be, all of us, aware that they exist, those tricks exist in the arsenals of not various countries, many various countries, on our side and on the other.
You're with the Sherman Report, daily news commentary available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, with video posted on YouTube and Facebook. Here's Peter Sherman.
Since we've been doing this show, the Sherman Report, which is now, I guess, about 6 weeks, not a long time, we've had several regulars join us, and hopefully they will continue to because they add to the show, I think. Why did they agree to do it? Because they're friends of mine on some level, and they want to help build the show, and I thank them for that. And also because they're media savvy and like being involved in media in any way. This is the new media. Andy Stinton, for example, the small businessman, is one of them, and he's standing by. He'll join us in a moment. Despite the number of channels on your TV set, most of them show you endless episodes of Friends and Big Bang Theory and Blue Bloods. What they don't show you is differentiated news with full-blown reporting behind it. Used to. Not anymore. Those networks don't, can't, or won't do the homework. Some people, and I'm one of them, go away and do the work themselves, and we discover things that are never mentioned elsewhere. Now, if you don't like Donald Trump, for example, that is, of course, you're right. If you do like Kamala Harris, that's also you're right. And personally, I don't think like is even a word that matters. I've stated without hesitation that I'm a conservative. Right now, I'm a conservative who fears for my kids and fears for my grandchild. I believe Donald Trump is a braggart. I believe he's a narcissist. I believe on some levels he's a boor. But one thing he isn't is stupid. And I have no proof that Kamala Harris, an anointed candidate, not a chosen one, I don't know if she can even use an electric toothbrush. God knows she doesn't ever actually answer a question honestly or fully. And you wonder why I favor Trump. Well, here's some insight. I was watching Bobby Kennedy Jr. speaking the other night. He told his audience that his role with Trump would be to drain the swamp. That was a Trump catchphrase in the 2016 election, which Trump won. People not in the know thought incorrectly that he meant he'd rid Washington of the professional hangers-on in the political class, and that wasn't really it. Kennedy mentioned directly his uncle, John F. Kennedy's assassination, supposedly by a lone gunman using an ancient bolt-action rifle from the 6th floor of a building being passed by the motorcade in Dallas on that fateful November 1963 day. Bobby Kennedy said the story will come out if Trump is elected, the real story. Most people already know the CIA was basically behind that assassination and others. So he's right. Kennedy says that Trump has several extraordinary gifts. One of them is good instincts. I agree with that. Kennedy cited unneeded lockdowns, hydroxychloroquine use, alternative medicines as worthy of study. He turned out to be right, ultimately, but the medical establishment surrounding him during COVID pushed those things away. He was against war and thought Ukraine could be peacefully settled and be an undamaged country today if negotiation had been used. He said, I'd rather have a deal than a war. Trump wants Kennedy to have a role in his would-be new administration with those kinds of things in focus, and also with ending childhood disease, which Trump and Kennedy both believe are the result of unwitting parents feeding their kids crap. I have watched and read about Trump carefully. I have read Kennedy's books, which are loaded with not just innuendo, but straight finger pointing, and he sources everything with footnotes. He's never been sued, so I guess his assertions must have some validity. I believe what is being intimated here, based on my own research, that the United States is not really run by a president and Congress. Some of it is, to be sure, but the big decisions and the worldwide intrigue are driven by what President Eisenhower once warned about, called the military-industrial complex. Now, that's simply referred to these days as deep state. Webster's dictionary defines deep state this way, quote, an alleged secret network of especially non-elected government officials and sometimes private entities, as in the financial services or defense industries, operating extra-legally to influence and enact government policy. So it's about money and power. It always was about money and power, lots of both, whether it's Trump or anybody else. Trump is their greatest nightmare because he doesn't believe in that. Biden and now Harris can be controlled. Why do I like Trump? For the same reason I like Churchill. Churchill was a short, gruff man who lit his first cigar before his feet touched the floor in the morning. He was on his first scotch within an hour of that. He farted in cabinet meetings. Weird, right? But he is correctly credited with the driving strategy and morale boosting that won the Second World War. Good leaders can definitely be strange. Now let's bring in Andy Stinton. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning. I was just checking up on some of your facts, and they are, of course, suspect.
They're all wrong. Okay, but I'm going to finish with a couple more sentences. I'm going to go to you. We had a topic slated a few weeks back, and you'll remember that, asking how many out there have had Trump arguments at the dinner table or wherever they didn't end well. Mine tend to end well. And the reason is, I hope, because we're friends, and I have other friends with whom I discuss this. You told me you wanted to talk Trump. So we're going to talk Trump. We don't always agree on issues. We never disagree in anger. And that, by the way, is no way to disagree for anyone on anything. So, Andy, tell me why Trump should not be president and Kamala Harris should.
I mean, it's really simple. It doesn't require all these conspiracy theories. I just look at what I see. And a lot of people say, well, you can't trust the media. If you can't trust the media, watch stuff live. Watch what Kamala does live. Watch what Trump does live. And do this amazing thing that we used to do back in the day. Form your own frigging opinion.
That's what I do.
And here's what it is. If Trump or if Kamala is as dumb as a brick, can't operate a toothbrush, which many claim, she outdid him, baited him. This is Trump during the bait. He needled him and got him to react badly and temper to the point that one of his replies, the cat and dog thing, has now become a mime, whatever it is.
Well,
Hang on. She needled him to that point. Now, if she's as dumb as a brick, can't operate a toothbrush, what is a world leader going to do this thing? They're going to take Trump, wrap him up, and throw him out.
Do you sincerely believe that what she did was in any way, shape, or form ad lib? Because it was a great presentation, but it was prepped for her.
Oh, my God. But why do people keep going on? Everybody practices for a debate, be it in Britain, be it in Canada. They do prep. That's what sensible people do.
Yes, but they don't often have it written for them. And I'll give the lady one thing. She wrote summations, which she delivered in court. I'm sure they were great because she became Attorney General of California. So I defer on that. And I readily acknowledge it. So she can deliver. But she took stuff and delivered it that was obviously researched and prepared, as opposition research is about, for that debate. But since then, she's done a number of interviews, which are ad lib, ad hoc. She sits down with somebody who puts a microphone in her face and asks questions. And she's gone back to what we saw before that debate ever happened. Ramble, 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 ramble. Let's go round and round and round and never answer the question. Then most of them start with, I was raised by a single mother and we weren't
Peter,
rich,
this
blah, blah,
is
blah.
every politician. I've interviewed politicians. You've been a politician. They never answer a question. I don't care. I've interviewed them in France. I've interviewed them in the States, in Canada, in Britain. Let me tell you, Peter, I definitely think black is black. Blah, blah, blah. On the other hand, black, sometimes people can look at maybe white. Every politician does it. And you know what? You are now becoming a fan person, a supporter of Harris, because you're saying she came in prepared. Trump obviously did not come in prepared. I want a world leader to go into a meeting well prepared, backed by experts. So she might not know everything about nuclear disarmament, but hopefully somebody will have given her the Coles notes.
Well, coming in prepared or coming in Trump may, in Trump's mind, and I think it is, be the same thing. He's prepared all the time. He does a rally every second day and has for 4 years.
And lies. And outright lies.
And she doesn't.
Okay, hang on. No, here's the difference. J.D. Vance admitted they made up the cats and dog stories. Hear me out. Let me finish.
I'm not going to talk.
Okay. The governor, the Republican governor of Ohio, says there's not a problem. The mayor, all the people of this town say there is not a problem. Yet they keep perpetuating this lie. Now, if I am sitting in Canada and I'm going, I am the prime minister, whoever that may be. I'm probably thinking the Bloc Québécois. That was humor. And I'm having to rely on Trump telling me something. I'm suddenly going, oh, hang on, is he telling the truth? Because he is a known liar. Liar, liar. I don't want a known outside liar like that.
Pants
Give me
on
some
fire.
bullshit with my lies.
Pants on fire. Look, I can't tell you what's going on in Springfield, Ohio. I'm not there to see it, and there's nothing I can read that tells me any kind of truth about it. Here's what I did.
Hang on. So
well,
you don't?
No. You
believe
let
the
me.
governor. You
let
don't
me
believe
finish.
the governor.
Not necessarily. I don't know.
You
Here's what I
believe the
know.
town
Here's
council?
what I know. I went and did some research. You can do the same research. Look up voodoo, then go look up voodoo. Voodoo is what they call voodoo. It's spelled Voudou in Haiti. And I didn't find out that they had shipped anybody to Springfield. I didn't find out that they had sent their ways to Springfield. But I did find out that they do use animal sacrifice, that it is a demonic religion. And often when they're finished with the animals, they eat them. It's there for you to see in a number of different sources. Whether that's been imported to the States by Haitian migrants, I can't possibly say. But I know that the practice does exist. And what's interesting is, although it's a demonic religion and does this, they're all Christians. Okay, so you explain that.
Pete, you just went way. There are demonic religions, pagan religions in England. That doesn't mean that when I come to this country, I'm going to be sacrificing virgins in the town square.
I don't know what you're going to be doing.
So the point is that J.D. Vance admitted that they created that. This is you're the fanboy of these guys. They've admitted they created it. Is that
I did not say, I want to be clear on something. I did not say, and I will never say, that I am the fanboy. I am saying that you have to choose, and I've heard this phrase more often than I care to on television, watching various channels over the last week. You have to choose the least unlikable. You have to make the choice that's there for you. And if I had to make the choice, given the fact that I admit readily that a lot of things that you point out are pointed out by many people, I want a leader because I'm afraid for the world right now. And I think that if you take a look at those two people and ask yourself, who's going to sit down at a table and look across it at Vladimir Putin and negotiate a peace in Ukraine, the answer to me is there's only one choice. That's it. And I don't care what he does in his personal life.
Yeah, Harris has actually got some political. What's Trump's political?
If she was going to do it, why hasn't she done it?
Hang on. Oh, that is the oldest argument because she's
really, because she's been around for 4 years, Andy.
Hang on, she's the vice president. The vice president was originally created when they formed the American government, which is not a democracy, by the way. It was originally so there would be a tiebreaker. That is the total role of the VP.
She's done it because there is a tie in there. So she sat in as vice president and done the casting vote.
Changing subjects.
No, I'm just saying she's done the casting vote and she's done it properly in Congress. I agree.
She doesn't decide on policy. That's the president.
Then why was she sent to Europe to meet with Zelensky on a number of times? Why was she sent to the border to resolve that?
She was never sent to the border to resolve that. If you go and read what she actually did, she was appointed, and you can correct me here, she wasn't created as the border czar. That's your bunch of crooks and thieves that made that up. She was there to find out the causes of it and deal with it internally in these countries. Her job was never to control the border.
Great job.
She does not have that power.
Great job. She has the power to go back and report to Biden and have decisions made that are the correct decisions. I haven't seen a hell of a lot of correct decisions over the past 4 years.
Well, no, because the correct decision they did actually make was they put a bill through, a bipartisan bill, into the government system to deal with the immigrant problem.
Yes, and Trump phoned all of his friends in Congress.
And he said, stop it. It's not good for elections. Let me ask you this question.
I guess you listen to the TV guys.
No, I watched him.
Okay.
He said he wasn't for that bill. He actually came out and said, I cannot support that bill. Okay. But let me ask you
what's that mean? He had no power.
No, what he does, he's the quasi-leader of the Republican Party. They have to, but hang on.
When he does, he'll shut that border tight as a drum and figure out what he's got in the United States.
Let me ask you this, okay? Who had the worst poll rating of any president in the history of mankind when he left office?
I can't tell you.
It's Trump. I looked it up.
Okay.
So he was the least popular. All of this stuff that you went on about Kennedy and about the health and all the rest of this, American politicians can't do anything because
explain why 50% of the people, give or take, I know, still say want him.
Because that's simple. Because the first thing that I think that you believe that America is a democracy. Well, it's not.
I don't believe in America as a democracy right now at all. Before you came on, I talked about deep state.
Yeah, but no, forget deep state. America, look this up in the Constitution. I brought it up last week. There is no right to vote in the Constitution. The moment that the citizens of that country do not have a right to vote, it is no longer a democracy.
That's true.
It's not a democracy.
So here's
okay. Let's move along. No,
let me come back to you on the Constitution first.
Well, hang on.
You take 2 weeks ago. Kamala Harris heard that they shut down X in Brazil because they didn't want that kind of power there. And if you're watching or participating in X Twitter, you're in for an $8,900 US fine. That's what they did. She was interviewed on it, and she says, I favor that. And I said to myself, have you not read the Constitution, lady? In the First Amendment, there's freedom of speech and freedom of the press, which today would be transposed as media. So if you think that, are you the person I want to lead me?
I don't know, and I can't comment on that because I don't know anything about that subject.
Okay.
But if I have to choose between a person with no political background whatsoever, which would be Trump, somebody who has run unsuccessful businesses that have lost money, somebody who has been prosecuted and impeached. Okay, these are my choices. Somebody who has the moral values of an alley cat, somebody who has the intelligence that somebody who can't operate a toothbrush can outsmart him. I don't like either of them, to be totally honest, but I would pick the lesser of two evils with somebody who actually has worked within the political system, knows how it works. And also, I wouldn't be voting for somebody who says, I'm going to take everybody to court that opposed me and make them pay.
Well, Andy, I really have no comeback on that. So I'm going to say it's been an interesting discussion. We are ending it as friends. And that's the kind of discussion that's occurring at kitchen tables right now, isn't it?
Of course, we're friends, but I value you probably as one of my dearest friends because I feel a sort of empathy for you because you go through life always being wrong, Peter.
Oh, well, now, I don't know. I think there are some people who would admirably defend me. Andy Stinton, that's Andy Stinton, the small businessman. Good discussion. And that's our show for today. See you next week, Andy.
Ciao.
Okay. And I'll see you, all of you, tomorrow, right here on the Sherman Report.
The Sherman Report, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the video version at YouTube, Facebook, and always at petersherman.com. Thanks for listening to the Sherman Report. If you'd like to connect with Peter directly, just go to petersherman.com.